which was a better way of making that sound go gradually down. Hello, everyone. Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters Mannix, Kales, Gillian, George, or Theron, look away. This series is not meant for you. But for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. Catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. If you would like to support the channel, you can check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Shoutouts to my platinum patrons, Andrew, Brian, Richard, and Joe. And gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos, David, Vicente, Gilberto, Sean, aka Cert2B, Adam, and Dead Lizard Lounge. Thank you all for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. And let me know if you preferred last week's. We went back to Discord. I kind of found a workaround. My problem is they updated Discord about a month ago, and for some reason, every time I try to maximize the window in order to properly capture all the webcams and everything, it turns us into a slideshow. Like, the frame rate of Discord in general is awful. So the workaround is I don't maximize it. I keep it like a half-size, window in the middle of my monitor, and then I just kind of individually capture all the windows. And the problem there is it slowed my stream down a little bit, but I don't think to where it was awful. Like, for some reason, the first 2 minutes, like when I first started the stream, were just like, you could tell the credits were like real bad. But it seemed to level out, and it seemed to work okay. And in general, I like using Discord to Roll20 because I think the audio and video is better. Even with some kind of frame rate issues. So I apologize for those technical difficulties. I just wanted to go over those from last week. But it sounds like that workaround will at least work out for now. So we could, I guess, use Discord going forward and use the nicer bottom half of the overlay, hopefully. Hello, Michael and Scott. Live stream numbers last week. Yeah, that was really fun. I don't know why we randomly hit that milestone. But we hit, I think, over 20 people watching the stream last week, which was really fun. I keep the little YouTube counter up there just to keep track. I don't know how actually closely accurate that thing is, how closely it updates, but at some point I looked over and it was above 20 for quite a while, which is very, very cool. So that was neat to see. I'm very happy with being able to grow the channel. I've never considered myself to be a YouTuber. This is kind of just a side thing I do for fun. Hopefully I have a pretty, this is my personality, just how I act. Normally I don't put on like a front or anything like that. So yeah, it's very cool to see other people and kind of cultivate a nice little community for that. So definitely fun to see. Alright, so Tomb of Annihilation. Let's see, what happened last week? We got everyone to Groung, as I mentioned. I moved Groung into the Aldani Basin, and one of the things I really like about Tomb of Annihilation is that pretty much 80% or so of the locations are hidden on the GM layer, using Roll20 terminology, meaning that it's hidden information for the players. They don't know where all these major locations are, so I, as the DM, can just move shit around as I want to. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm condensing the jungle, because a hex crawl is only interesting, will only get you so far. I think, random fights can be fun, but in D&D, combat really slows things down, and you want to make that stuff more meaningful. And plus, as the players level up, the jungle is just going to get less dangerous, and that's kind of true of a lot of the campaigns we've played in the past. Is overland travel, we tend to do more, random encounters early on to try to build the players up and challenge them, and then at some point, it just becomes kind of a slog. Granted, with the rules we're doing is they can only get a short rest out in the jungle, so I still think it can be kind of interesting. But in any case, I want to make the distance between points a little shorter for my players, because I think the locations themselves are way more interesting than just random encounters in the jungle, though I do try to make those interesting as well. We actually got through 4 fights last week, which is pretty crazy. Very, very small fights, and it's funny, as a DM, you try to put these combat scenarios together, and it's hard to tell where the balance is going to lie. So what fights that players are going to think are difficult and what fights the DM is going to think is difficult. I didn't think that swarm of bedbugs, essentially, like centipedes, was going to be challenging much at all, but swarms are deceptively powerful. It's kind of similar to the Terrafolk, where they don't have great, hit points or AC, but they pack a fucking punch, and they have resistance to normal weapons, which is kind of nuts too. So that ended up being a funny scenario where Gillian almost freaking died from just centipedes crawling all over. I was able to pull off. I think they come with a disease, which I think I put in a rule where you can do a medicine check to heal the player, so it really only affected George for like one combat encounter. But I like the way he roleplayed being like sick with the flu, essentially. And then that shambling mound ended up like not being any kind of challenge whatsoever, even though it's a massive CR5 beast with over 100 hit points. But there's only one of it, and I screwed up a little bit, and I even realized this obviously pretty quickly, I think, after one person went. That meant to be a surprise round, because that makes a huge difference with monster power level, how often they can actually go. Even if they roll a high initiative, I mean, the action economy, players just go more often. And I had to roll really low on initiative. But it was supposed to be a surprise round, then we went on break after we rolled initiative, came back, I let George do his full move, and then I realized, oh crap, I meant to do a surprise round, but I'm not going to go back in time there, so whatever, we'll just go like normal. And it ended up being just a pretty easy fight. I only got off one round of attacks. I still managed to hit Mannix pretty hard, but it ended up being not really that challenging a fight, which honestly is probably fine, because that stupid centipede fight ended up being way more challenging than I expected. So, at some point, if one fight is a lot easier than I expected, but another one is harder, then that averages out pretty well, I think. I don't want to kill any of my players because of just a random fight. That sounds stupid. But I do want to challenge them. I do want to drain those resources, give them that feeling of just that razor's edge, while still making it fun. So those were just kind of some random combat fights. Then we got into Zhongrong. I hate the name of this place. I hate saying it, but and it is not one I was originally even going to use. I didn't think Groung were that interesting. I didn't like the event that happened here, because there must be some kind of misstep in the book, because there's this big ritual the players are supposed to be involved with, a big story thing, and none of the Groung can speak Common. So how the hell are... I didn't understand that at all. I mean, we've gone around this before. The players were able to help like Aarakocra in the Prince of the Apocalypse campaign through like charades and shit, but it was a really complex like story thing they had to go through with the Groung, and none of the named NPC Groungs, which there are named NPC Groungs with like hopes and dreams and motivations, can speak Common. So I don't know if that was just a big oversight or what. My players do have a scroll of comprehend languages. We'll see if they want to use it. However, obviously, if you've been watching our campaign, you know that randomly George has decided to swear all vengeance upon all Groung, and treat them as just a complete hostile enemy, which is fair, because Groungs have tried to kill my players in the past. So I don't think my players will want to work with the Groung at all. So I need to try to adjust what is actually happening in this middle part as my players have made it through the maze. And for those of you playing on Roll20, what I did, I'm not letting my players actually move through this maze, because it's just a standard maze. You can take your token and just kind of wander around. Instead, I am only putting them on this maze in certain chunks whenever an actual encounter will happen. So I'm using it as a combat battle map, which is great to have, but I'm not actually letting them like wander around in the maze. And I think I'm actually even cutting off certain sections you can see on dynamic lighting, so they can't make it like too far away from where I want them to be. I actually am putting them a little further on as they go, but I'm just using this as essentially a battle map and not an exploration map until they get to that middle part. Hello, Arno. I'm glad you enjoyed my XCOM missions. God, that Monday's XCOM was insane. I streamed for a lot longer than I expected. That was a hell of a mission. I enjoyed that a lot. I like the casting Groungs make everything difficult terrain, so the Groung can jump around to kite. I think this one only has the one caster Groung. It's the red one up here, the mage. Which is disappointing. I think it's the only one that I've seen in the entire book, even though it's got an entirely separate stat block. And then, even then, all the other Groung... There's only the green Groung, which is like the standard unit. There's the more powerful Groungs, which are significantly stronger. Like, look at this. A base Groung is basically a goblin in terms of stats. But then this one jumps up to like an ogre. It's got like 60 hit points and 13 AC. And I believe has a bow. And they have that crazy stunning, like AoE stun they can do. Disappointingly, the named NPC Groungs are just that same stat block from what I can tell. And then they have the caster Groung, which is the red one here that can cast some. Let's see, what spells can you cast? Plant growth, cure wounds, bark skin, and spike growth. Although I would argue that the entire pond is already difficult terrain. Groung were benevolent little frogs. I don't think so. I think it mentions in the book that they are, unless I totally missed that. Well, let's see if I can just, it's quicker to go on Roll20, isn't it? I'm sitting here cracking open the book. Groungs are aggressive, frog-like humanoids. They are fiercely territorial and see themselves as superior to most other creatures. They're Groung supremacists, which to me, they're like Yuan Ti minus the imperialism, and I guess minus the slavery. But they're, I mean, they definitely, yeah, they're lawful evil. So I guess they're just kind of organized evil creatures, but definitely not friendly. But what's weird is the book writes them like they are friendly, or at least like neutral, because you can like, you're supposed to help the red Groung. You're supposed to help like some stupid ritual for the king wants to like summon the god and mate with her or something, goddess I guess, and you're supposed to help like convince it through a bunch of illusion and trickery, and it's just weird because it's none of that is supported by how the Groungs act or anything like that. So it's a very odd scenario. So I want to change all of that. I do have a few more. We stopped last session in the middle of the Thorn Maze. Wasn't the best stopping point, but that's always a difficult thing as a DM to figure out. Well, do I stop the beginning of the maze and turn it early? Do I try to make it go late? Do I just stop? So I just wanted to stop it in the middle of one of the scenarios. I was shocked at how well Theron was rolling his freaking survival. You can see all these hit points I've been rolling. Wow. How well he's been rolling his survival checks. So the way this maze works is you have to, and again, this is why I didn't use Roll20 to let them actually move through it, because it's just a series of skill checks. I need to actually pull this up so I can look at it. There it is. I believe they need to roll 6 successful survival skill checks to make it to the end. However, there is a chance for a random counter in the middle of each one, and I believe I rolled for this on the stream last week during Crafting Annihilation. I'm pretty sure that was the case. I'll just remember to tweet this out because I don't auto-tweet anymore when I go live. There we go. But I believe I rolled for a lot of the random encounters. I don't think I can scroll up now because there was a lot of combat last session. And I came up with a lot of random encounters in between. The idea is it takes 6 successes. So more successes would just equal more random encounters, which slows things down, but hopefully they can be interesting. Although I've almost exhausted all of the encounters already in terms of the actual combat ones, because we did the ghouls, which was really easy, and it was kind of meant to be. A patrolling Groung, which was also easy, but as somebody in the chat pointed out, Gillian unleashed a thunder wave, which also was an audible boom for 300 feet away. So clearly all of Dungrung Lung is now very aware that the PCs are making their way, or at least something is capable of creating a loud blast inside of their Thorn Maze, so they're should be at least somewhat on alert. And then I have another encounter with the Assassin Vines. These things are really fucking cool. They are giant plants. I actually made a custom token for them because in Roll20 it just does the thing where it says the words, because there is no picture for these particular creatures. I'm going to have a lot of fun with unveiling them right, and you can see my players can't see shit from here. So like here's what Mannix can see when I'm going to move him on the map. They're just going to be in this tight corridor, and the vines are going to attack. I'm just going to unleash this, and I expect this to be a pretty nasty fight, because this will be a surprise round. I'm going to remember fucking surprise round this time. And then the first thing they're going to do is unleash the, let's see, what did I just minimize that to? There it is. They can turn Entangling Vines. They can essentially cast Entangle on everybody around them, so that's an instant strength saving throw on everybody or be restrained in the opening round, and the other one will attack. And it hits pretty bad, but more importantly, it grapples them, and then if nobody frees that person, or they don't free themselves, they take 66 poison damage at the start of their turn, which is nasty. It does say the vine can only constrict one target at a time, so it tells me that they do that auto poison damage instead of doing their constrict attack, which is fine. I mean, that's, you don't want to have them. They only have the one vine, I guess, but I think this will be a very difficult and challenging fight for the players, and it will reward George with an assassin vine, which is part of his personal quest, which I have not been doing a very good job of doing those. I did tease, I should have added this to Manix's, I did tease the Winterscape event, which I felt kind of bad about this one. So I wanted to do the Winterscape event is a random encounter in Tomb of Annihilation where the players find essentially the aftermath of artists using the Ring of Winter. One of the Ring of Winter's abilities is to create a 120-foot sphere of just frozen solid ice everywhere. And the idea was the players would be able to investigate this area and realize that, okay, artists, I don't know if they know that artists has the Ring of Winter. I think, I'm not sure if they've put two and two together like that. But I teased the fact that these tigers were going to come attack this point in the middle, so this kind of happened. Whoops, I just lost roll 20. And the difficult thing is, I wanted to tease the fact that artists went to Oralunga. So I originally had this encounter because I assumed the players were going to go to Oralunga from Mabala. They did not do that, but I still wanted to go ahead and have this encounter in there. So there was an awkward point where the players clearly are, interested in figuring out what went wrong here, what happened here, and follow the tracks. And the problem was, normally I would have let them just go that direction, but I literally did not prep Oralunga yet. I haven't been able to, because I can only prep so much in a week. And I basically have to choose, all right, where are you guys going? And that's what I'm prepping. So I prepped all of that Aldani Basin stuff and then Dungrunglung. So I might have screwed up in giving them the crumbs and then telling them, okay, well, you can't actually follow these crumbs. So I did feel bad about that. Maybe I should have just saved the Winterscape event until they were firmly going towards Dungrunglung. So I have mixed feelings about introducing that just because the player... I guess I'm going to have to restart this. The players clearly wanted to follow the tracks and pick up on the story thread, whereas I basically just used that to tease, like, yes, Artis was headed towards Oralunga, although I don't even know, I don't think they put actually two and two together that Artis has the Ring of Winter or used it there or any of that. So as far as I know, they're just trying to find Artis for Zendala. I also haven't figured out a way to introduce Zendala again. I need to have her enter again just to make her more relevant. She has not been part of the campaign since they arrived in Port Nine-Zaru, so like session 3. So I probably need to have a meeting with her at some point. I have to reload roll 20. I don't know why it crashed on me like that. You can manipulate them like the big fat feels something to do with it, or Chamberlain will help or something. Yeah, I mean, they've set up some stuff with some named NPCs there, but again, none of them speak Groung as written. I mean, obviously as a DM, I can just make them speak Common, but given what George is and how the Groung have treated the players in the past, which is just a straight hostile force, I wouldn't expect my players to work with them at all. So I want to kind of change things around a bit. They rub an overhead over their body to make it poisonous. Yeah, I like that too. Interestingly, Roll20 actually missed the fact that you do get a saving throw. I had to update that after the first time they fought the Groung, because it wasn't as written. They just did auto poison damage, like as an additional damage, but players actually get a saving throw. Target must succeed on DC 12 con saving throw or take the additional 2d4 poison damage. They're not quite as scary as when they first fought them. Alright, now we're back on Roll20. So yeah, I've got the one encounter with the Assassin Vine. I believe, let's see, what did I write down? That they've already done 4 or 5 frickin' successes of the survival checks. They've done 4. So the first one was the ghoul, and they were confused because, like, wait, we succeeded on the survival check, but we're still having an encounter. So I had to explain that, like, every time you make the check, you are just searching, going down the maze, and a success means you don't think you're getting lost. You think you're going the right way, but you're still going to find things. So the idea is, if you fail, you're going to end up with more encounters. But on the other hand, you don't want to slow things down, too much and drag it on. So I am glad that they're actually kicking complete ass on their survival checks, because even if if we just get through these 3 encounters, that's still plenty, I think, for the maze. So they need to do one more survival check. No matter what, they will end up with this fight with the assassin vines. I know what I was talking about. It was George's personal quest, which is to hunt different monsters and get their body parts. You can see he's got the Almirage horn and the claws of a Zorbo. So if he can get the vine of an assassin vine, he will be able to complete part of his personal quest. And I literally modeled this after the Monster Hunter games, in that you can take different parts of monsters and craft them into a unique weapon for George. And I think what I want to do here is let him make one from the first 3 that he gets, which is the Almirage horn, the Zorbo claws, and then this vines of an assassin vine. I would probably have to require him to have a short rest, but then he could just, magically, he's got the scroll he got from his old mentor that has like the recipe for crafting a magical weapon. And I believe what I was going to do was, let's see, it's not here in this Google Doc. I think I was going to give him a longsword that has like a built-in vine whip. And I was picturing, let's see, where's it under? I think it's under player. I was picturing that whip sword from that one lady from the fighting game. Holy crap, I can't remember. Ivy, I think? She's got like a segmented sword that turns into like a whip. That's like exactly the weapon I was picturing of giving George. And one thing I want to do with all their personal quests is, upon completion or like making it to another stage, they get rewarded with some specific item that is useful for that character. So George would get, let's see, I actually wrote it down somewhere. Vine sword. It would be a +1 sword, so +1 to attack and damage. Requires attunement. You can use a bonus action to transform the sword into a barbed whip, or vice versa, back to a sword. The whip does the same slashing damage as the sword, but it gains a range of 30 feet. And if the attack hits a large or smaller creature, you can pull the creature up to 10 feet closer to you, which I think is exactly what the Vine Whip spell is. So essentially gives him a ranged attack with his sword that he can pull people closer to him. So it's not, a big game-breaking thing. It is a +1 weapon with a cool little effect. And I like that. I like items that give players fun additional options. So like he's got the, it's not just a +1 sword. He's got the option of transforming it into a kind of a long-range weapon and whipping people toward him. So I think that'd be a neat thing for him. So that'll be the reward there. Tomb of Annihilation is very, very low on loot. I've mentioned that before. So I am adding, I'm definitely adding some loot for my players, but that will be after. And he was on top of it too. If you remember, when he was starting to chop, he wanted to chop down this thorn maze. He picked up on that right away. That like, oh, I need a vine from Assassin Vine. I should take this out. So I had to kind of jump out of, I had to basically tell him like, you might find like more actual Assassin Vines earlier in the thing, because I forgot like, oh wait, yeah, what if he tries to hack apart the thorn wall? I did have that the vine attacks him, but I didn't want him to necessarily cut off one of those vines to get his weapon. I wanted him to work for it and actually fight one of the creatures. So I was kind of unprepared for him to be on that proactive about remembering like I need this vine before I had actually attacked him with the Assassin Vine. So that will be the case where he'll get that. Now, if they make their other 2 successes, I don't think I will have any other encounters in here. So we've got the Assassin Vine. They've got to roll 2 more survival checks. If they succeed on both of those checks, they will just have this one Assassin Vine encounter, and then they will reach the entrance to Groung. If they fail again, however, I will probably just use the Pit encounter, which is a really easy... shoot, I have to get all my windows open again. It's basically just I'll have Theron like, hey, you missed a turn, and you're going to fall into a pit. Let's see, what a concealed pit. 5 feet wide, 10 feet deep, and lined with poisonous wooden stakes. The lead character would fall in the pit, taking 1d6 bludgeoning damage because you fall 10 feet. You land on 1d4 stakes, each of which deals 1d6 piercing damage and 2d6 poison damage. So I probably just would say, okay, well, I'll just do the 2 and say you take, God, even 2 would be 2d6 and 46 poison, though, wouldn't it? That would be fucking awful. Let's see, what did I write down? You take 1d6 bludgeoning from the fall, 2d6 from the spikes, and they're coated with Groung poison for 2d6 poison. Can you save for half at all? Doesn't say you can. So if there were, let's see, each stake, the first character up on a pit falls in, taking 1d6 bludgeoning damage. That's just from the fall, so you just take that. You land on 1d4 stakes, each of which deals 1d6 piercing and 2d6 poison. So if you have 2 stakes, that's 2d6 piercing and 4d6 poison. That's pretty fucking awful, isn't it? How much damage is that? So GR, let's do 1d6 plus 2d6 plus 4d6. Roll them d6s. Holy shit. 30 damage from a pit. That's real bad. Now the thing is, this one says the lead character spots the pit with a successful wisdom perception check. So if he misses the survival check, maybe I shouldn't have him, if I'm doing that much damage, I shouldn't have him just blunder right into the pit without some kind of chance to spot it, because I think Theron actually would spot it. Take a look at their... let's see, what's Theron's... Although they're not making perception rolls as they go, but I would probably argue... Although he's only got a passive of 14, so only Mannix would see this thing once again. That seems a lot of damage. What do y'all think? That seems bad. I mean, that's only 2... I mean, it's 1d4 stakes. That's only 2 stakes. The other option is I have both the lead characters, both George and Theron, because they said they were in the... I made sure to dictate how the marching order goes. So I could have both of them fall in, and each of them land on a stake. So someone's going to lose an eye. Poor Mannix. That does seem like too much damage. I think I'm going to split it up. So maybe they both fall, which would be 1d6 plus 1d6 plus 2d6. So instead of dealing 30 damage to one person, I would deal... Boy, that's weird. 6, 6, 1, 2. I guess that's kind of average, isn't it? Let's just roll that again and see. Boy. The average is looking like about... Okay, 15 or 16. I could do 15 or 16 to each one. That's a little better. That still makes the players go, oof, without like fucking almost killing them. But again, that would only happen if Theron misses a survival check roll. So that's basically punishment for losing a success. That means they get lost. He's not paying attention, and both him and George fall down into a pit and take that damage. The idea was, and then they can just scramble up out of the pit. It's not a big deal. I could have them save against the poison. It's not mentioned here, but the Groung poison does allow a DC 12 con saving throw, which both Theron and George are very, very up on their con. Which the Groung poison is a all or nothing when it comes to the saving throw. So you actually like negate all poison damage. So if you just took that, that would cut away what, half the damage? I mean, it depends on how I roll. This one would only be 5 damage that they would take if they saved against the poison. This one would be 11 damage they would take. So that would cut it up quite a bit. Whereas if I do this one, if they each take 2 spikes, they would still take 9, 10, 11, 12 damage. But they could save against it. But if they don't save, then that's fucking curtain. So that is interesting. Could save against the poison. I may allow that. It just kind of, I mean, so they're essentially taking 2d6 automatically damage, and then they can save for the poison. So I am going to add that in there. Let's see. So pit. So both the lead characters will fall, take 2d6 from the fall, 1d6 from the spikes, and we're going to do a d... I could do a saving throw for half damage, maybe. Or should I do an all or nothing? I mean, the Groung poison says all or nothing, so we're just going to say the same thing. So DC 12 con saving throw to negate the damage. So 1d6, 1d6, and then 2d6. Okay. That's not nearly as bad then, because there's no saving throw involved there. But again, that only happens if Theron rolls less than a 15 survival, which given the previous roll, I mean, he was rolling 20 plus on all of these. I think he's got a +6. So there's a pretty good chance that they will not run into the pit. I do have some Groung set up here, because if they fail again, then I'm going to have another Groung patrol hit them right at the entrance here, which I probably need to block this off a little bit. Let's block this one off. I'll have to move the players in real time since I have to have them up there as well. That'll be fun. I'll just do another Groung encounter, like right at the entrance, and they're following up on the loud explosion that the players heard. Here's what we have to figure out, though. What do we do with the inner part of Dungrunglung? My idea right now is the Groung have captured Azaka. So that is a personal motivation for the players to go in there and rescue her. So it's a rescue mission. They have correctly surmised that they heard the tiger growls. Do I have tiger growls? I think we just lost. We just lost one of the fan bursts shutting down. Yeah, that's a bummer. Oh wow, I can upload my own audio. I forgot about that. They just changed all this, didn't they? I haven't messed with my audio sections in a while. Oh, February 25th, so I still have it for now. I could get a tiger. So these are just music, though, I think. None of these are sound effects. I don't think. NPC scripts. Is that a... some of them are... This is like ambient noise. I need a tiger growl. Can I still use it? I have the tiger. There we go. Tiger roar. How's that sound? Watch your ears, everyone. That's pretty tigery. Yes, I know. God damn it. That was hilarious when Azaka got captured in XCOM. Black Tiger sex machine. What? I might use a tiger sound effect. We'll see. But anyway, they heard that. They know Azaka is captured. What are the Groung doing with Azaka? I mean, they have a prison here. They eat people. I believe it specifically mentions in Dungrunglung. Our nice happy frogs are... is it considered cannibalism? Because they're not like humans eating humans. They're not Groungs eating Groungs. They just... If they eat sentient people, are they still cannibals? Let's see. Groung. Here's the island. There's the shrine. There's hovels. The prison pit. The dugout pit is 5 feet deep and covered in stout wooden bars. Prisoners confined here are guarded around the clock by 2 green-skinned Groung warriors until they can be cooked and eaten. Any items taken from prisoners are entrusted to purple-skinned Groungs in the nearby hovels. Unfortunately, there is only the one artwork for the Groung, and they're all just green. Character in the pit can throw aside the prison bars with a successful DC 20 athletics check. For the check made, each guard makes 1 opportunity attack against the character attempting the check, as if for some reason players were trying to do this in the middle of fighting, I guess. And it details all the plans. So, my idea was, and I kind of mentioned this on the Patreon page to see what folks thought, is that the Groung capture prisoners in the wild. They bring them back to this temple that they have, and I kind of want to have them like ritually fight people they've captured. So they create like a... I wanted to create that scenario where players are being forced to fight in like a Fight Club style scenario. The problem is that requires the players to be on board with that. rather than treat this place as one big combat encounter. So one of my thought processes was, well, when the players first enter the zone, I should just try to knock them out and capture them. That is a big cop-out and something that DMs should not do very often, and when they do it with a lot of care. I did it for Mabala, but I did it through actions in combat, and in fact one of my players actually submitted to it, and I think that did create a very interesting scenario that made Mabala very memorable. But here, I would allow like a saving throw, but it would be like a bunch of blow darts hit them as soon as they enter this area, and then whoever fails the save, a bunch of Groung are going to come up and throw a net around you and drag you over to this like gladiatorial pit. And then the others can kind of resist and run away, or do they start up a big fight and try to fight it out? Because players naturally don't want to be captured, and I totally understand that. You don't want to lose that agency. And it's not something as a DM I want to do very often, but that would be one way of forcing them into this situation. The other thing is that the players can just come in and see one of those battles already going on. So maybe, I can describe like a cutscene of Azaka currently fighting, one of the orange Groung, and there's a bunch of Groung, creating a circle around it, like literally like a Fight Club style situation, and this Groung is like fighting Azaka, and Azaka basically wins, but just keeps getting poisoned from the, from eating and fighting the Groung, so she's just really fucked up from poison and practically like, drugged up essentially. From the frog poison, to where she's like almost feral. So, and that's why she hasn't been able to escape very well. She's pretty much permanently in were-tiger form, which the players have not seen her in straight-up were-tiger form. They've only seen her transform. They do know she is a were-tiger and she can transform into a tiger, and she is not one to be messed with. I do think this is a fun way to introduce Azaka, but I want to make it more than just the players sneak around and rescue her from a bunch of bars. A barred cage. I want to make this a more dynamic, interesting situation, with the caveat that at any point the players can royally fuck things up, and that's kind of what players do. You can have your best laid plans, and the players will jack that up, especially because I know my players have George. I love Raymond to death. He is a blessing and a curse because he does all kinds of crazy shit in D&D, and he will probably want to go ham on the Groung as much as possible, so it'll be up to the players to either try and stop him or roll with the punches. And, I mean, even to his detriment, like, I had to knock him out from being, essentially after I captured him, I had to kind of knock him out with the Terrafolk. So, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards, is just creating this situation where the players see this Fight Club situation going on, and then really just punting the ball to them and see how they want to deal with it. And I think that's one of the most challenging things for a Dungeon Master to do, is instead of writing a bunch of scripted events, you just create a scenario and then live during the session work with your players to then build that story based on the decisions they make and what they want to do. And it is relinquishing a lot of control and events to them. It's extremely nerve-wracking, and obviously as a DM, you just cannot think of every situation ahead of time. I do my best, but there's somebody's going to think of something that I haven't thought of, and it might have some dire repercussions. So I do have to realize that the Groung realize something is going on in the maze, so they shouldn't necessarily be caught completely unawares, and I should have like some guards posted at the entrance. So the players, if they rush in, they will be immediately dealt with. Now, I do need to have a rule where I don't want to roll initiative like right away. I want the Groung to capture the players if at all possible. My players probably won't want to do that, but once they see like the number of Groung here, they should be more amenable. You can see I just threw a bunch of giant frogs in here because I thought that was, I don't know, they would fit the area. But I don't want to necessarily literally have just a giant freaking combat encounter with like dozens of Groung. That's really probably not going to end very well for the players. They could kill Groung left and right. The problem is there are 8 of these Groung elite warriors surrounding this temple. And these guys are beefy as hell. I mean, 50 hit points on average. They have a +5 to hit. If you don't resist their poison damage, they do pretty good amount of damage. They don't have multi-attack, and every single one of them can do the charm around them. You just see I had to add Scorching Ray because the king has a circlet of blasting that he can use on the players. Although I think it's only a one-time use. One-time use item. The players can loot that afterwards. So the idea will be that the players don't need to kill all these Groung. Again, we'll just see how this works. Like I want the player. I want to create this Fight Club situation. This ritualized combat, or maybe like Black Panther would be a better example, where literally like all the Groung get together and create this big fight scene. Not necessarily for to crown the next monarch, but the idea is the losers are then sacrificed in this pool, while the Groung feel like they get stronger from killing these enemies. So I don't know if I would have the combat arena in the temple itself, or if I would create like a circle out here to make it more prominent, because I think this is visible. Let's see, what does the dynamic lighting look like? So right now, if the player makes it to, let's see, I need to grab a player. George, you'll do. And unfortunately, most of the maps are 5-foot battle maps in Tomb of Annihilation, which I love. This is not one of them. This is one of the very few battle maps that is a 10-foot square, which has been subdivided into 5 feet for Roll20, because D&D 5th edition rules fucking fall apart if you don't have 5-foot grids. It's just a disaster. And the two ways to do that in Roll20 are either to subdivide the grids, which makes it into tiny tokens like this, or double the map size, which you could do because the maps are pretty high resolution, and it just makes the map gigantic to where you're scrolling around. And Chris did that for Storm King's Thunder. That can work. However, I do not want to sit here and redo all this dynamic lighting on this maze. Fuck that. All of these are already done with the dynamic lighting. So if I double the size of this maze, that does not double the size of the dynamic lighting. That stays static to where it is. So I would have to redo all of that. I'm not doing that. So I just kept the subdivisions here, and I'm going to roll with that. So unfortunately, that's why, if you're wondering why the tokens are so freaking tiny compared to every other thing we've done in this game, that is why. Alright, so right now, when they hit the entrance, this is what they can see. There's no global illumination is turned on. It's daylight. They can even see inside this temple. I would have to give them, let's see, I think it's a handout, is it not? They can actually see what this temple, kind of similar to how Camp Righteous works. There it is. So they can see this. As soon as they exit, I would show them this, which that's just a good kind of insert picture of what they're seeing right here. Is this giant frog temple god thing. So maybe the actual combat goes on in here, because they would still be able to see that shit's going on. So let's put you off to the side. You're probably in charge. We're just going to surround this area. And again, as written, this is like they're like making perfume or something for the goddess that they want to summon. So I'm changing all of this. I'm making Groung. I'm embracing the fact that my players hate Groung so much. So I'm turning them into these like just nasty ritual combat, aggressive, horrible creatures. I'm just gonna embrace that. So they create these. John says maybe Groung factions of proxy battles pitting captured versus captured. Yes. So again, one of my thought processes was I capture my players, and at one point they have to fight Azaka, and like they can try to come up with things to do outside of that. But I would love to be able to pull that off. The problem is I'm very leery about capturing my players, I guess. I would love to try to force them to surrender, and maybe they will. In which case, I need to come up with a bigger prison area, or maybe I could force them to fight each other too. That would be freaking awesome. Again, players could pretend to do things. See, I want all of these to happen, but again, it depends on how the players want to play it, and I need to try to get across the fact that surrender is not only an option, but probably a preferable thing to do. And I can use my NPCs like River or something to say hey, we've heard the Groung like bring prisoners here. Like we can surrender at least for the moment, and they won't automatically kill us. I need to get that across to the player so they realize that surrender is an option, because right now there's going to be a lot of Groung right here. So I want to put Azaka in here at the moment. I don't know if I do, because I think if I put her in here in the middle of a battle, my players will think they have to rush forward and immediately like blitz mode. So instead, maybe have like maybe put like 2 just random prisoners in here, in which case I'll need to come up with a story for them. You know what? There are prisoners used in other areas of the book. Maybe I can use those. I think the Fane of the Night Serpent has prisoners at some point. Let's see. That's actually a different chapter. It's chapter 4. Oh, there we go. Prisoners of the Yuan Ti is a whole section. Thank you, Roll20. I can just use any of these prisoners and just have them not be there. Tavo, a 10-year-old boy. That's not something I want to put in a gladiatorial pit. Sev, a Yuan Ti pureblood who looks human except for his forked tongue. Succumb to... God damn it, poor Tabaxi. Succumb to mad monkey fever and is confined here until he regains his sanity. An insane Yuan Ti pureblood. That could be usable. Olama Othdamar, chaotic good female Tarami human scout, is a former crew member of the Star Goddess. See, Wreck of the Star Goddess. That could work really well, because that's nearby. Oh, that fits wonderfully. That would be an awesome draw to bring them to the starship. Oh, not the starship, the ship. Because I literally put that on the map, and she would be able to explain, oh, my ship crashed. And they're like, oh, that's the fucking ship in the jungle we saw. And she's like, yeah, it is. I like that. Okay, let's use this chick. She just has the generic scout picture, which thankfully is female, so I could just use that. Fascinating. Okay. What else do we have? Pottery Shard, a Tabaxi minstrel, was kidnapped while traveling from Port Nyanzar to Fort Belwarian. We know how we feel about Tabaxi. Gorvax, that's a fucking cool name, a fire newt warrior, was eager to escape and return to the Valley of Lost Honor. That's, oh boy. That is fascinating. I don't know if I want to introduce something that crazy just yet, but that is interesting. They are amphibious. They can spit fire. They're not that strong. Huh. That's really interesting. They don't speak Common either, just Draconic and Ignan, the fire elemental language. A harper named Lomar Drawl, a mage with no spell slots remaining. While searching for artist Simber in Port Nyanzar, he was drugged by the Yuan Ti guide Salida and woke up as a prisoner in Omu. I could have somebody that was searching for artists. Shoot, I could put Zendala in here, but I don't know if I want to put too many people in here. I don't think Zendala's really strong. I'm still not sure how I want to use her. Mung, a Batiri goblin. That would be a pretty funny one to use. Caught by the Yuan Ti while foraging in the jungle. Malnourished and suffers from feelings of exhaustion. I could just put a goblin in here. I could have a goblin versus the scout as a bunch of Groung cheer. Or just have that scout fighting a Groung. Kanush Natombi, Cholton human tribal warrior, foolishly traveled to Omu to prove his worth to another man. Kanush is malnourished and suffers from 4 levels of exhaustion. God, all these guys are fucked up, because I guess they're supposed to be prisoners deep in the Yuan Ti pit. I could just use... I mean, that would just kind of be the equivalent of a rando Cholton. Or Zilla Atazi, a Cholton human bandit, was a pirate aboard the Dragon Fang. Captain Elak Jaharwan threw Zilla overboard for insubordination. That's another interesting one. Well, I definitely love the scout idea. Alama Othdamar. I don't know what a Tarami is. Certain region of human. I like using her. I don't know. I could use the Harper chasing after Which actually, the base mage, isn't that a powerful one? Yeah, that's a 5th level mage. I wouldn't use that stat block. I could always use like a commoner or something too, but I need to make sure they have like a little bit of a backstory. Or Kanoosh or Zilla would also work. I like the idea of the Batiri Goblin. I think that would be pretty funny. They speak common. Eric Coker with a broken ring. Yeah, I think that's used in Firefinger is the only thing. I think there's a Eric Coker you can rescue from Firefinger, so I don't want to overlap that too much. But I'm excited to get to these big dungeons. We have not done a big dungeon yet. That's all late game stuff. Tomb of Annihilation is very oddly paced. It's a whole lot of overland map crawl for the first 2/3 of it, and then the last third is just all super big dungeon crawl. Let's see, so it's the Scout, which I may have to come up with a custom token for her. I will do that off the stream. I just want to see what this looks like for now. And let's say let's just put the Goblin in there. I don't give a shit about the Goblin unless they do save the Goblin. So what does it look like if you've got a Goblin versus a Scout, and the players can see up these. I think they can see. How elevated is this temple? Or is can they actually see in here? Are they supposed to be able to see in here? Where is that written? The shrine. Groung's Isle. Many marshy shores surround the shrine, which is 60 feet tall. It doesn't tell you how tall this is, though. So the shrine itself is 60 feet tall. The back of the shrine is an elevated semicircle basin of water 10 feet high. So this one is 10 feet high. So I guess they could just be able to see in this. Doesn't seem like it's very... This is very high. Okay. So when they walk in, they see a fight happening. Just barely in here, but I will say the fact there's a lot of yelling and screaming from Groung. Maybe just have a whole audience of Groung out here. Let's see, just put a few more Groung in the area. In fact, maybe they're not in the pool. Maybe they all watch from out here. So I have to physically construct this in Roll20. Kind of like that, maybe. Put work there. As they kind of watch this unfold, I'll put another Groung's right here. Actually, better yet, screw that. I'll put the elite ones in here. They'll watch the door like directly. Although if I put them separated, the players won't be able to see them from there. But yeah, maybe I'll put them next to each other. All right. So the idea is, when the players arrive into this area, it's a giant area. It's full of Groung everywhere, and they will see up ahead a shrine. And it sounds like there's a lot of activity coming from the shrine. They won't hear any tiger growls. I'm not going to have a Zaka in there right away. Instead, I'll have the Scout, a llama fighting a goblin, and they've just got whatever basic like weapons they have. And there's this this pool of water is just filled with blood and bones. In fact, I could spice things up a bit and put those things on the map. Give me bones. Get a little bit of oh boy, it's a lot of bones. It's a lot of bloody bones. How does that look? You just stick down. That kind of looks like it's actually not so much water, though. What if we tint that to blue? Does that still look weird? That's not bad. That's not too bad. Okay with it. And then, I mean, if I put blood on top of it, maybe I should do that. Just kind of like that. And then some blood. And the idea here is the players can rescue this or just see what's going to happen. If they don't do anything, the scout will kill the goblin, and then the Groungs will all cheer, and they will take the scout back to their prisoner pens, which I actually need to construct some more elaborate prison pens if this is kind of what they do. So maybe I need to find some more. Let's see, meanwhile, is there blood? It's not really a good blood pool, though. That doesn't really work, does it? No, it's like a square of blood. There we go. This is more like it. Blood in the water. Does that look too stupid? Let me just create a little bit of blood. And the idea is I would add all this stuff to the map layer and don't have to jack with it. Yeah, they're going to be all crazy about jumping in there after the blood. And you know what? They'll probably jump in there and do something creepy like just tear apart whoever died. I could definitely see that happening. It'll become red Groung, that's true. Maybe that's how they think that happens. They gain their magic powers through these blood rituals. Alright, so let's put this on the map layer. Let's put this on the map layer. And the blood on top. There we go. Okay. That's how they level up. Very true. Alright, so I like that idea. The players are not meant to come in here guns blazing. If they do, combat is going to try to happen, but the Tabaxi will strongly suggest the players surrender themselves, and the Groung will want to capture them for sure. Now, it will be possible for some players to flee back into the maze. The Groung would probably try to pursue them, and I would roll maybe a check. You know, a stealth check for the players, or maybe a survival check to make it through the maze to avoid them. The Groung probably will only chase them so far into the maze, because the maze generally can kill people by itself with all the things in there. So I need to have a more extensive prisoner system if I actually do keep them. Let's see, can I search prison, or can I search cage? Prison is like entire maps, isn't it? How about cage? Comma Nicholas. That one. I think I used a similar cage for. Actually, it's supposed to be a wood bar cage. So maybe something like. Yeah, that might work. Circular cage. Looks cagey. Not the, can't really see it too terribly well, but it's not very thick. Might be, let's see, what does this one look like? That looks like a way more complex cage. It also doesn't look like it's made out of wood. The optional side effect of Groung poison. Do tell. I don't know what that is. From Volo's Guide to Monsters. I do not have Volo's, nor do I think I have it on Roll20 either. Let's see what... no, in fact, Groung's not available at all on here. I don't know what the side effect is. It fucks you up somehow. I mean, it does say if they come into direct contact with the Groung's skin, they must make that DC 12 con saving throw or become poisoned for a minute. Which I guess is the actual poisoned condition. Which, at that point, probably all the prisoners are pretty much kept poisoned. Disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. That's pretty easy. How do the players solve this situation? Basically, yes, do Google it for me. I could probably look it up, but I have no idea. I have not looked at Volo as much, to be honest. It's just hard to say what the players are going to do in this situation. Are they going to, if they go in guns blazing, I'm going to suggest they surrender or flee. A stealthy approach would probably be better. Maybe they will realize that once they see all the things around them. In fact, I don't want to necessarily hide. Why did I drag these guys out? I want to put some Groung on the map, just milling about. Not everybody needs to be in the hovel. Let's put like that many and then put them on the actual... I did roll hit points for some of them, but not all of them. There's just too many. And frankly, they've got like 2d6. I guess there's a difference of like 2 or 3 hit points with each one, so it's almost not even worth rolling hit points on these fodder characters. I think I actually rolled them for like this inner sanctum, but certainly not for all these randos on the side. But I do want to sell the fact that there are a shit ton of Groung everywhere, and that steamrolling this area is probably not a great idea. Although Groung are not very powerful on their own. So let's see, you all. So the only prisoner they have right now waiting in the wings is Azaka. I don't want to make too many prisoners. Is Azaka, and then they've got that goblin, and then a llama character. And they've got kind of a cage right there. Let's see, how many can you fit in this cage? Oops, I need to put that on the map layer, though. Azaka's definitely suffering from poison as well as just repeated Groung poison, so she's probably pretty fucked up from that, and that would make rescuing her quite difficult. And I would like the players to kind of similarly to what they did when she first transformed, but they basically had to roll checks to calm her down, like Black Widow and Hulk style, in order to be able to have her not just attack them straight up. And the reward for that will be obviously gaining Azaka as an ally, which she's very powerful. Manix is constantly reminding me about the fact that they don't have Azaka with them and they miss her. And I've taken away Vorn for the last 2 areas, so they're feeling the sting of that. I desire to bath in mud. So it's like short-term madness kind of stuff? That's really interesting. I wonder if there's a good, like, long-term madness that she would be suffering from. Like, mechanically, because I was just going to kind of do it like a role-playing thing. Oops. Madness. Madness effects. There we go. Long-term madness. Vivid hallucinations. Extreme paranoia. A powerful delusion from a potion attached to a lucky charm. Blinded or deafened. We know all about blinded. Uncontrollable tremors or tics. Partial amnesia. That'd be really mean to have Azaka not even recognize them. The confusion spell loses the ability to speak, and the character falls unconscious. I mean, you could just say vivid hallucinations is turning her feral, like she's just seeing, everything as a monster trying to kill her. So, would the players be able to snap her out of it, or is it just last a certain amount of time? I would probably... well, you know what? I would probably allow a medicine check for them to see that she's clearly suffering from repeated Groung poison that is turning her into this, and that it's not really going to be a question of persuasion so much as she needs rest and get it. She needs to pass it from her system, which she would naturally, but she's been in contact with Groung constantly, and so she's constantly getting that Groung poison. So the tricky thing is, how do they get Azaka out of here when she is basically feral? That I don't know. If the players wanted to blitz this whole area, then one option would be to free Azaka, and that could be a solution. Like, they free Azaka, and then it's just a giant combat encounter, where obviously this Alama woman would be able to kind of help them as well, if they end up talking with her. So that could be one situation, because they can get a circlet of blasting from King Groung, and I'm thinking about maybe making the red spellcaster Groung drop a good druid staff for Theron, because according to my notes, Theron has not had a single magic item all campaign yet. A couple people have had multiple items, and he has not gotten a single one. So I'm thinking, and it's hard because he doesn't actually cast spells that much. He just pretty much wild shapes, and that's all he does. So it's difficult to give him a magic item that he would really want, but maybe something that would allow him to cast more spells without using his slots would be something that would motivate him to use spells more. So I'm thinking about creating kind of a custom staff similar to a lot of staves that have, charges. You have 10 charges, you get 1d6 plus 4 on a long rest or something. And it specifically does a bunch of druid plant shit, basically. Or maybe I should theme it I was thinking about plant shit, because that was maybe that staff helped create this whole thorn wall, or helps maintain it. So it'd have stuff like plant growth and spike growth, and I mean that's already on the Groung's spell list, so that could certainly be a fun reward. So I mean, if I do that, that means George gets that cool sword from getting the assassin vine. Somebody can get a circle of blasting from the king, and then Theron can get a cool druid staff from the red Groung. So I think I'm adding a cool amount of loot here if the players do want to somehow be able to fight all these characters. Now, I would create a situation where if the players want to fully play along, the Groung will take them as prisoners, and at one point, I would probably pick, I don't know, maybe 2 players. The problem is if I put a player with Azaka, Azaka will fucking murder them. None of the players can fight Azaka one-on-one. And if the players even try to play their cards right and try to calm her down, then it wouldn't work, because as I said, it's a medicine check, and they have to figure out that you just have to kind of wait out the fact that she's poisoned, full of Groung poison. So I don't want to necessarily do that. Instead, I would love if the players surrender, the Groung will basically direct 2 of them to this pit where they will fight each other. And that could be a moment where, those players are fighting and they're seeing what the situation is, and the other players can kind of sneak around and do something. That would all be really, really cool, and I would encourage the hell out of that. So I need to try to, again, really explain to the players that surrender is an option, and that Groung, their captives, are basically forced to fight each other in this pool of blood. And the loser is basically sacrificed to the pit, and the winner just keeps kind of climbing the ranks. And the idea is the winner of the captured prisoners would eventually fight a Groung, which would be a big honor for that captured prisoner, and then that would that prisoner has proven themselves as the strongest of the prisoners, so that then makes the Groung more powerful when or if they can kill them. So the final like boss of that run would be probably Rourke here, who was like the second in command, which is, as far as I know, he's just the exact same as all these other orange-skinned Groungs. Again, that's if the players actually make it that far, but I would probably just create a situation where maybe two players fight each other and they can choose to fake it or how they want to do it. I think there's opportunity for cool shit happening if the players play along with it and don't just treat this as a traditional combat scenario, which is always an option. It's always on the table, but I think, frankly, it's one of the least interesting options as presented here. There's a pretty fun chamber, and I think the third tomb, the extra tomb, where the party pulls a lever, they have to roll wisdom saves. They get a short term of madness every round. Yeah, I haven't looked real closely at the tomb yet because I'm so focused on what we're doing week in and week out. I have done obviously an overview of the entire book. That's probably why I'm bringing stuff like the Sohn sisters in, because they don't really make an appearance until later. That reminds me, if I want to pull off that Steel Predator thing, I need to introduce that pretty quick. But I'm really excited about getting to the tomb. There's a lot of really good shit in there, but that's a very late game. We're probably like a year away from getting there. Go and you watch Nat 19's episode 7. They roleplayed the hell out of it. Running for this encounter, yeah. I would love to have some role playing here. I think I'm changing things up. I don't want to do the whole goofy ritual thing, but I'm still making it like a ritual, just changing it to where it's just like gladiatorial combat between prisoners. And the PCs can hopefully play along with that, and I can hopefully get to where I can even force some of the prisoners to fight. Maybe I'll make some of the Groungs sort of, maybe one of the named NPCs, maybe the red one, be able to croak out a few words in common if the players don't think to use their Scroll of Comprehend Languages to get them across that this is an option. But otherwise, the players will be involved here, or they can try to stealth up here and free Azaka, but that would be a big problem. So I'm creating a lot of these challenging situations for the players to deal with, and hopefully they realize that straight up combat is a last resort. It's always on the table, but with the amount of Groung here, it's just probably not going to be a very good idea. But I am looking forward to Dung Rung Lung. Hopefully this creates a interesting situation, and I love that one of the prisoners that they find could actually lead them to a different area. I mean, they could still go to the Heart of Ubtao, but they could even go to the shipwreck, and she would want to insist it, in fact. So maybe instead of the Heart of Ubtao next stream, I'll be prepping the Wreck of the Star Goddess, because we'll say that happened awful recently. As you can see here, is actually just about equidistant from Heart of Ubtao. In fact, it's a little closer. So they could certainly go there. I think Dung Rung Lung will take up the rest of the session, so I'm only prepping that for now. If they get to where they're ready to leave, I will just end the session there, because I haven't prepped anything beyond that. And then I'll have to decide, based on the fact that they've got this new person, assuming they rescue her, if they want to then go to the Wreck of the Star Goddess or continue to the Heart of Ubtao. Does the party have any way to understand the Groung language? They do have a Scroll of Comprehend Languages. They got that from Mabala. I don't know if they put that in their inventory. There it is. Scroll of Comprehend Languages. So that would be the only way. Let's see. Comprehend is it's like a first level spell, isn't it? Yeah, so you can easily read that from the scroll. So, and it lasts for an hour, so they could cast that and then be able to converse with the Groung, no problem. Hopefully they will think of that. I am hoping that is that will be the path that they choose. The guards lead them reports to the king, and kneeling starts to let them understand Groung. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna prep. And this is all off stream because I'm going to be writing this all down, but I'm going to prep a lot of scripted events that will happen if the players play along with what I have planned. But I'm not going to be upset if they go off book and do their own thing, because I will be planned for that. So, yeah, I think Dung Rung Lung will be a little fun. Hopefully it'll work. All right, I think that is all the time I have for this session of Crafting Annihilation. Thank you all for joining me. If you do like the content, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson, and of course tune in tomorrow. I'll be here for the XCOM live stream tomorrow afternoon, and our Tomb of Annihilation live play session that evening. I'll see you all then. Have a wonderful day. Bye.